Hello and welcome, everybody. I am Daniel. I am the founder of Startup CPG, and I'm pretty excited about today's webinar. We, a couple years back, were able to build a partnership with the team at Cin7. The reason that we did it is I used to be the CEO for a beverage brand. And when I was on that journey, of course, I posted in the Startup CPG Slack, what's the best inventory management solution that everyone needs? And I did that because we're starting to get all of these different ingredients and having to figure those out, figuring out our production, a couple different warehouses, like getting sales orders and having to match everything up. And the guy who had come on as my business partner, as kind of CFO and COO, was like, yeah, we need something. You're going to ask a lot of questions and I'm not going to have the answers if I have to do all this manually and I'm going to run out of time. So the answer that came back overwhelmingly from the community, from consultants that I trust in the community, was Cin7 Core. And so we were able to build this partnership with them. I'm really excited to have them here. You'll always hear that people sing their praises in the Slack channel. And I think it's great to talk about this as a topic, but it just kind of helps to see it. And I think it's kind of nice for us all to do it together because sometimes it's nicer to do it as a group rather than kind of feeling the pressure of a one-on-one demo with anybody. So thank you, Isabella, for coming online and giving us all the preview of like, okay, yeah, what does this thing actually look like? How do I set it up? How do I track everything? And I am also especially excited to welcome today the Coconut Cult team. So for anyone who doesn't know them, you're going to hear a little bit about their business, but they've been a standout brand the last couple of years. And, I think based off the reputation of people at the company, it's going to be one that takes ops pretty seriously. So you'll get the chance to hear from a brand who's using this at like probably a more advanced stage, I think, than some of you are at. But also we're going to talk about the experience of these guys, Justin, James, and like, what would you do if you were doing it all over again? So I hope everyone's going to get tons of tips. And if you're in the chat, please, post who you are, what your brand is, and any questions that you have about inventory management. We'll get to some of them as we go through. We'll save others for the end. You can use the chat, you can use the Q&A, and we've got people here to give some of the answers as well. So Isabella, let's go. I'm really excited.
All right, sounds good. We'll go ahead and kick it off. So I've got my little slideshow presented. Hopefully we can see that pretty well.
I'm sorry, hold on. I'm getting a little bit of echo. Does anyone else hear that? Can you try again, Isabella? I don't know if it was because...
A little bit of echo.
Can you try saying, I just want to make sure it comes through clear.
Testing. Is that any better?
Yes, there it is.
Got it. All right.
Let's go, Isabella. Restart. Here we go. Thank you.
Beautiful. All right, let's get started. So definitely want to give everyone an introduction to Cin7 Core, kind of what we do, why we exist. After that, we're going to take it over to Coconut Cult, hear a nice bit of a case study. And then after that, we'll lead a demo. I'll take about 20 minutes and take you through the platform so that we can see what we're actually talking about here. So getting started with our presentation, a lot of us are probably at the point where we're getting a little bit annoyed with inventory management. If we're not now, we'll probably be there soon. Traditional inventory management, we think about a startup business, we're probably looking at Excel sheets, Google Sheets. Somebody is sitting down at the laptop and spending a lot of time to do maybe some forecasting, figure out what inventory we even have in the warehouse. Kills growth, to put it short. We've got people spending more time than they need, lots of manual work. That always leaves room for error. So I'm sure we can all relate to some extent, feeling some, trepidation about, is our inventory correct? Are we planning correctly? Definitely slows growth of the business, right? We want our customers to be able to have access to our products whenever they'd like to purchase them. We don't want to run into things like stockouts, low inventory of our popular products. That we're taking staff and we're putting extra time to them to get them to purchase in these products, see if they can shorten that lead time, get some rush shipping. So we really don't want to face that inefficiency. It's going to slow the growth of our business, which in the end, our goal to grow the business, get our products out to as many people as possible. So that's kind of where Cin7 comes in. We saw that there was a problem with many disjointed systems. Maybe our e-commerce, our QuickBooks is talking to each other. Then where does our fulfillment come in? How are we managing the inventory for our own locations, for our outside locations? Cin7 kind of serves as that center of truth. We're connecting in your e-commerce sites, your supplier relations within purchase orders, and then, of course, connecting to your accounting system, making sure that all of that gets over to your financials. So we're kind of center of truth here, connecting together all of those different platforms that you may have, giving you real visibility into your inventory and your operations. Definitely gives us some power when it comes to the business, right? If we're not spending as much time focusing on the inventory, we can do other things, focus on growing the business, focus on other areas that need our attention. So really our goal is to give you that end-to-end clarity, integrate everywhere across all of your platforms. These are our goals, in connecting all of those things together, as we mentioned, maybe these disjointed systems coming through to something like a Cin7 Core. We're giving you that visibility into your operations, your inventory availability, allowing you to, kind of our slogan here, manage less and sell more. That's always the goal, is to enable you as product sellers. So from here, we've got a good idea of what Cin7 Core is meant to do, grabbing all these systems, putting them in one place, connecting your inventory, giving you that visibility into your business. So I'm going to hand it over to Coconut Cult just to give us, their story, how Cin7 Core has enabled them to grow and manage their operations better. And then after that, we'll jump into the demo. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to you, Coconut Cult.
Sweet. I'll start first. So I'm Justin Oleesky. I'm the COO of Coconut Cult. I've been here about 3.5 years now, going on 4. Background is fulfillment. I own a 3PL in Los Angeles. I was brought on to Coconut Cult with James. He brought me on to basically help with movement of goods, operations, inventory management, supply chain, lots of things like that, and scale production. The first project we did when I came on board was inventory management software. We had to have something in place. Our data was pretty dang messy. I feel like we had more than 20 spreadsheets off of Google, Excel, Smartsheet, lots of different things that we were using. And it was clustered. And as a CPG company, like having product in WIP, product in the facility, product inbound, we needed something centralized. So we demoed a ton of softwares, and we came across Cin7 Core, and this is the one we chose. And this is what we've started to utilize for the past, say, 15 months now, 15, 16 months, fully in all operations and financials. Our product is definitely unique on how we create productions and assemblies inside of Cin7 Core, just because of our recipe. But it's been able to handle everything that we've thrown at it. And we've, gosh, I think 3 or 4x in the past 2 years. And it's been easily capable of handling all the new SKUs, all the limited time offerings that we do every month. And we've loved it so far. And then James, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm James, co-founder, VP of Finance for Coconut Cult. And yeah, like Justin said, we had a award-winning amount of spreadsheets and Google Sheets that we were using to track inventory, record cost of goods, book that to financials. It was nightmarish, I would say. I think that the process of transitioning from that over to Cin7 Core has given us so much more accuracy and I think ability to run custom reports and really understand the ins and outs of what is actually happening when it comes to movement of goods and cost. So yeah, we're really excited to continue to work with them, and happy to talk more and answer any questions that you all have.
Yeah, maybe I could ask you guys. So you said about 15 months ago, and you were in that, mess of spreadsheets that probably everyone starts in. How did you get to that point? Like, did you intentionally not have an inventory management system leading up to then because you just wanted to be the details, or you were just delaying the cost? And what broke the camel's back where you're like, it's time, we need to get the software for this?
It's a great question. I can speak to prior to Justin coming on board. I did look at a number of inventory management software early on, maybe the second year of the business, like 2018. And it was clunky. It was like, it wasn't web-based at the time. So it was like you had to log into a client portal. It was like, you know, American Online type of nightmare days. And it just never stuck. You know, it was hard to set up. We didn't have the support, or, you know, Justin has so much knowledge into inventory management, and we have a really good team around us who help support us with the onboarding. We just didn't have that before. So I think that was, you know, the reason why it didn't work previously. Justin, what was the reason why we made the switch? You remember?
Honestly, it was definitely keeping track of our inventory and knowing when we have to order. Like it was just a pain in the ass really to deal with lead times, because we didn't know 100% what we had based in the kitchen, based what we had in our main facility. And I think everybody was stressed out of, oh gosh, we got to call vendor A and get a product in here in the next week, or we're not going to be able to make it to the grocery store. So I think that really that's what like broke that straw. We had to do it.
So, well, one, the clunky one you're talking about, I think I know which one that is, which they're the ones who will sell you the most on LinkedIn. And I'm always like, don't, and no, you have to like hire a whole implementation department in your organization to do that. So that's cool. So part of it is like figuring out that there is a much lighter touch solution that can work pretty well for you guys. That's cool. And then I like, Justin, what you said about like, you need to know when to order the ingredient. I used to work at Just Egg, and I was the like modeling guy. I would do all sorts of stuff, like because I was a former consultant. Anyone who needed to do something with spreadsheets, like they would just kind of call me in. And I tried to build that spreadsheet actually at the time before they got an inventory management system. And the product manager was like, I just need a button that tells me when to order the more stuff. And I was like, whoa, like, yeah, our forecast, and then I'll build this. And I actually couldn't do it. It's the first time I've ever been just stumped by a mod. I'm like, I don't know. I spent a couple weeks, I couldn't do it. So I wish I had known just to go for this. And then, so maybe, I don't know if this is for Justin or James, but let's say you like start afresh, and now, you know, you're building a new company. At what point would you be pulling in the IMS? Would you wait like for a certain number of units, or like a certain number of month, like where, you know, just because a lot of brands like Coconut Cult is doing great, you know, congrats to you guys. You know, you're manufacturing 200K units a month. Maybe 15 months ago, I don't know if you were at 50K or 100K, like where would you be telling brands like, it's time, you need to do it?
I mean, if I could go back in time, I would say like for any company that I've been part of operations for, it's immediate. I would have done it immediately. Just having the cleanest SKU structure is so important. So just starting right off the bat is probably the best situation. Doesn't mean like you can't start it a year or two later or 10 years down the road, but it is cleaner, I think, if you could afford it right off the bat and start it right then and there.
Bare minimum, at least have like your own SKU master spreadsheet, like keep things clean, like nice data integrity.
Yeah, if you have 5 SKUs, you know, and there's ingredients for each one of them, I would jump the trigger already if I could go back.
Okay, just so everyone knows, Cin7 is our partner. We have a little discount with them also. For the first month, you get it free, and then 50% off 3 months. So I put the link in the chat here. Their pricing starts at like $350 a month. So it's not crazy. But Justin, one more question is like, some of these brands they're early stage founders. They might have a couple people. They don't have enough money to have a Justin yet. Like, do you feel like there's any obstacle where somebody who's just like, okay, I'm going to learn this and be able to do it on my own? Is there an obstacle for them just being able to do it? Do they have to have a Justin?
I don't think so. I mean, I've done this for a while. I didn't say that I also worked for an IMS, but it was more of like an automotive IMS that did with like eBay parts and stuff like that. But I would say that Cin7's like help center, they're like university, has helped my team. We're pretty lean here at Coconut Cult. Like we are really lean. And so like a lot of my team has had to just do what Cin7 has to offer available online as like resources. And we've gotten by perfectly fine with that. If there's something that I could help in and jump in, perfect. Something James could do, perfect. But a lot of my team has been very self-sufficient on that. And we really only have just a few members in operations, maybe 2, that fully run Cin7 Core for all of our operations internally.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I would add that I've learned a ton just through that online university, and if you have the willingness to be patient and like work through things and like figure things out on your own, it's definitely doable. I would recommend that people lean on, professional, whether it's a consultant or someone who can help set it up in a way that's going to work for you and scale for you if you're starting earlier. Because I think that that level of knowledge on how the system actually works to set it up is great. And then you can kind of problem solve and learn after that.
I agree, James. We find great success when we take the initial implementation very seriously. We make sure everything is set up correctly the first time. Builds us a good foundation for the rest of our business to operate on. Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many like different ways of handling it, right? CPG is unique. Every company is unique. So Cin7 Core has been really great being able to like do audibles for us. We used to do like bill of materials and runs like with scheduled times for ours, but we ended up changing that to like your assembly program inside the system, and that's been great as well. So we've been able to switch things up even later down the road.
And maybe last question for you, like, if you don't do this, what's the risk? Like, okay, if you're maybe not at your guys' scale, like at your scale, you just need it. But like, what was the risk for you 15 months ago? Were you going to run out of an ingredient because you missed something? Were you going to not be able to fulfill an order because you might have messed up like a spreadsheet? What do you think the risk is?
I mean, I think there's a lot. I mean, James, you could talk about the financial things, not knowing if invoices are getting paid by our vendors, like firm distribution. I ran out of products so often, so that was a big thing. But yeah, I mean, those two are to me the biggest keys. Like, we never knew exactly how much we had on hand, what was our cash flow because of it, and we always had to make immediate purchases.
I think that there's on the finance side, there's some subtleties, like when we make a purchase order in Cin7, we put a cost in, and that flows through the entire process. And we know for sure what that unit cost is going to be. And it changes, right? Like an ingredient fluctuates, but we always know, okay, that's what that is. And it's all so intimately linked to our QuickBooks that we can also know that our financials, our balance sheet is accurate. And I think that, we went through the process of having to do that big reconciliation when we moved over, where it was like, okay, now we have to match this up. What was that dollar difference that we were off by? And that was scary. I think that's a big risk.
Yeah.
Like, and there's a lot there, but yeah, I think that the level of detail, and you just really can't get away from costing when you work with Deere, which is a great thing, I think, for a CPG business.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. It's super, super helpful. Isabella, I'm going to come back to you because I know we want to get into the actual tool and do the demo and everything, but I mean, nothing can take the place of actually hearing about it from a brand that uses it. So I really appreciate that, Justin and James.
Yeah, thank you guys for sure. All right, ready to jump into the demo, Daniel? What are we thinking?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, sounds good. So I'll head into our Cin7 product here. I'm going to take us on a nice walk through the platform, sort of from start to end. We're going to start off taking a look at some of the modules that we have in the system, just talking about sort of product life cycle. Where do we start? Where do we end? We'll touch on each of those modules. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat. Steven's going to help me here and shout out some questions, maybe at the end of each module that we might have. And then we're going to leave about 10 to 15 minutes open for questions at the end. So if you want to really dial in, pay attention, and then add those in the chat later, totally up to you. But just want to give you a good feel for what the system looks like, what some of the benefits definitely that we have here. So when we log in, we first see a nice overview dashboard. Looking here, just some overall figures on the business, some KPIs. As we scroll down, what's going on with our purchases, products, sales. These can all be dragged around as we need. And we do have a full reporting suite. So if we want to see some more details on these, we absolutely can. Go ahead and pop our modules out here. Along the left is our navigation. As we mentioned, we're going to walk through sort of the life cycle of a product and of our transactions. So we'll start at the inventory section, take a look at how we store your products, what availability looks like, talk a little bit about purchase, production, and sale, actually bring those goods in, produce them, and sell them, and then link it all back into reporting and accounting. Since we store all this information for you, how do we give you visibility to it? So we'll head into our inventory section. We will store all of your SKUs in our system, whether it's a raw material, finished good, non-inventory products that you might not even stock, but you want to sell. We'll store all of those SKUs. We make it easy to get those in. We can give you a CSV template, or we can download those direct from your e-commerce integrations. If you've got everything set up nicely in Shopify, it's about 3 clicks to get those products into the system. For your products, we keep track, of course, of availability. We're an IMS, that's like our whole deal. We do keep track of multiple locations here. So if we've got a main warehouse, if we've maybe got a 3PL that we're getting into in the future, if we've got somebody's garage where we keep some of our packaging materials, anywhere you store goods will have as a location. Then we're going to give you visibility into what lives there, what you actually have on hand, and then based on your sales, what's available. So really giving you that insight into where does our stock live, how much of it do we have, what does it cost? And then, of course, with locations, tracking some of those transfers back and forth, just making sure that you have complete visibility into that stock at any point in time.
So this product availability, that's going to show you, not just the products that you sell, but also it's going to go into like anything that's a SKU for you. So that might be, if you have some secondary insert that goes into your packaging, like it's going to show that also. Basically it's going to set all of those up in the system and give you a sense of all of that. And then like what you have like available and allocated meaning like you got an order and you assigned those units to an order. So if you see like a negative availability, it's basically because you have orders coming in that's more than the stock that you have in the warehouse.
Exactly. Yep. And another benefit of this visibility is if you use a co-packer that makes your products for you, we would have each of their locations in here as well. If you'd like to track your raw materials, finished goods at the co-packer, we'll have their location in here. You can type that in, search it, see exactly what they have at any point in time. Just making sure that you understand what you've got at their location, especially when it comes to finished goods. We want to know if we need to transfer those out, what we'd like to do with them. Yeah. Perfect. All right, sounds good. As Daniel mentioned, a couple different stock values here. Just do a quick over this. On hand is what we have in our warehouse, our physical goods. If we walked out, we could view it on the shelf. Our available is that on-hand number minus any open sales or production that might have reserved those goods. Like for this guy here, 500 on hand. You can see I have 100 allocated. If I click into that, I wonder where they're allocated. Okay, it looks like an assembly. And then that gives us our math of 400 available. If we were connected to something like an e-commerce site, we always shoot up that available number so that you have a clear picture of availability there. And we do offer buffer stock as well. If you're multi-channel, if you sell on Amazon, Shopify, Walmart, we can have a buffer there. I might have 100 available. If I set that to -10, sends up 90. Just gives us a little bit of wiggle room there for our sales. Perfect. All right. So now we've got an idea of how we store products in the system. What does our availability look like? As a good note for everyone, this is getting a little in depth here, but within the product listing, we store pretty much anything that you need against these products. The basic things like SKU, product name, category, barcode. We also store things like your bill of materials or some of the recipes that we'll talk about. We base production off that BOM. We also track both sides of pricing. So what are our price tiers?
And just to slow us down a little bit. So bill of materials is going to be like for a SKU, what would that be versus like basically that's the thing that's going to tell you what are all the ingredients you need to make something, and that's going to help you project out the ingredients.
Exactly. Yep. That's essentially our recipe to say to make one of these, we need to use this many components. Then when we tell the system we need to produce 100 of these, it does the math for us on how much we need to use. Yep. Perfect.
Great.
Yeah, good note there. Just a couple other notes on products, let you know what we track here. Up to 10 price tiers, as well as custom pricing per customer. This might be something like retail, wholesale, VIP. We want to make sure if you're making sales in our system, your customers are getting the correct pricing, that we track those.
So you would set up these price tiers. Let's say you have your pickup price, you have a bunch of other prices by SKU. You can set all of those up in the system, and then you're just going to be matching the price to when you're setting up, like, hey, I've got a new customer, like here are the prices that apply to them.
Exactly. Yep. Then if I've got a VIP customer, when I go to create a sale for that VIP customer, they're getting the correct price automatically. If I'm not the person who gave them VIP pricing, it autofills. I don't have to have that knowledge of what pricing they get. Exactly.
Great.
Yep. Perfect. To finish out products here, on the flip side, we do track all of your costs and suppliers. So if you've got multiple suppliers who may supply, whether it's raw materials, finished goods, whatever it is, we could note any amount of those suppliers, and then what prices are they charging you? Just like sales, that enables when we create a purchase order for that supplier for these goods, automatically getting that correct price on the PO. Nobody has to go into a price book and kind of figure out what's appropriate there. Daniel,
Hey,
any
Izzy,
other?
we got a quick question.
Yeah.
For a particular item, can you produce it and buy it? How would you manage that in the system is the question. And I'll answer the other question in chat. That's about Omni and Core.
Okay, so the question was, for a product in the system as SKU we're dealing with here, how do we produce or purchase it?
Yeah, it says produce it and buy it. Can you produce it and buy it?
Yes, so that's directly where we're going next. Now that we've got a good feel for products, we're going to head into purchasing, talk about how we get some materials into the system and on our site, and then use those to actually do some production. Yeah, good segue there. Sweet. Daniel, any other notes that you would make about products here? Anything else pretty important we should touch on before we head to transactions?
No, I like it. I mean, basically, if you have the bill of materials and you know your suppliers and you have the prices in there, then I can see how that's going to help you calculate what your cost is going to be, like Justin and James were talking about, like project out what cash flow you're going to need, then eventually to pay for those things. So I can put the pieces together.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
this is a great part for us too, because like during the channels portion at the bottom, this is where we link to like our website. So we push to like Shopify and have it all listed there.
Exactly. Yeah, that gives you visibility into where is this product listed? Shopify, Amazon. Exactly. Good stuff. All right, so we've now got an idea of what SKUs look like in the system. What do we store? How do we view the availability? We'll head over into transactions and talk about how we actually bring those goods in, use those goods to produce, and then possibly sell those as well. I'll head into the purchasing section here. As a note, we will store all of your purchases. Like we mentioned for SKUs, raw materials, finished goods, inserts, non-inventory items, all of that's going in here. We can import those via CSV if you've got a bunch of them at once, or we can just hit the plus button, fill out this form that we'll take a look at here. Click into my purchase so we can see what it looks like. We will store all of your suppliers in the system. So at any time, you'll be able to see all of your supplier history. What have they previously supplied to you? At what cost? All of their details. Up here at the top is where that supplier information lives. Since we store those, pretty easy to enter that in here, either by typing in their name or selecting from a drop-down. All their good info here will fill in. For purchases, we do have the option to invoice first or stock first. So when we talk about invoicing, we're referencing this data going over to your accounting system, whether that's Xero or QuickBooks Online. We want to empower you to do whatever order makes sense for that supplier. We understand receiving, invoicing typically happens separately. So we want to keep them separate for you, give you the option to choose there. As we scroll down, we see our nice order stages, ordering, receiving, and invoicing. And then our actual product grid with any additional costs here. Some nice notes I like to make about purchases, some handy features that we have here. The main one is landed cost. We keep talking about costing, financials, and accounting. One of the great things that we offer is landed cost tracking within purchases. So not only are we paying for the cost of these items, we're likely also paying for freight, some shipping. We might also be paying fees from our supplier. We might also be paying customs and duties to get these goods on site. Any of those additional costs that you pay, the system is going to want to track. We want to add that up into your unit cost. Eventually, once you sell these, giving us really accurate cost of goods sold. So landed cost, we absolutely can cover a couple different ways that we can do that. We did mention invoicing, sending this over to accounting. So I've got a nice sheet that we can distribute if necessary that shows what syncs between us and accounting systems. It's quite a bit there. The goal is to reduce any double entry. We don't want you to have to put this in our system and in QuickBooks Online. Ideally, you'll be working out of us, syncing that over to QBO, who gets a copy of the information. So we'd like to make that nice and easy for you. Make sure that accounting has visibility to this information as well. Last main point here, receiving. A couple different ways that we can receive. We can come into this order and on this tab, simply note what was received, what quantities. We do track batch numbers, of course, so we need batch numbers, expiration dates. In addition, we also do have an app. Everybody loves an app. Put it on your tablet, put it on your phone, be able to do some of these actions. Our WMS app does include receiving. So if you'd like to scan in goods to receive those, pull up your POs on a tablet, be able to do it that way, absolutely an option as well. So the big three for purchasing. Go ahead, Daniel.
Okay, so you have all your ingredients like packaging, whatever stuff like listed in here as these different records. And then you can actually place the order or create the invoice to the company, and it's going to send it automatically to them. And then once you actually receive it, you can then put it against that order here and say how much you got and what were the expiry dates of the batches that you got. And if that's like coming to your warehouse, they're entering that in for you, or like your team is centrally going to have to get that information from them and enter it.
We have options there. Yeah, so we can either have the team in the warehouse use that WMS app and they can scan it as it comes in. Otherwise, sometimes we would prefer to have like a paper sheet that we give to the warehouse. Maybe they're marking it off as they receive it in. They send an email to someone that says, hey boss, purchase order 123, we've received this many goods. That's the time when somebody might come into the back end and just mark those as received. Yep.
So if you're like, hey, are you WMS compliant, or like, if you're asked the warehouse that and they say yes, it means they can do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we do offer the WMS as well. So essentially, as long as you have a device that can download an app, as long as it has an app store, the Apple or Android store, you can download that, have access to the WMS. Yeah, we're pretty hardware agnostic there for that as well. Perfect. Sounds good. So those tend to be some of the main topics when we talk about receiving here. Landed cost, how do we receive, how do we get this over to accounting? As a note, we do have places for things like attachments. If you want to put certifications, documents against this, we absolutely can. And then we do have some custom fields we can add in here. If there are items that you would like to see that we do not offer, we can always add in custom fields. Nice feature for all of the sections of Cin7 to finish out here, our activity log. So regardless of where you're at, purchase, sales, products, customers, we've always got that activity log to let us know who has done what when. Daniel, any other good notes about purchases that I'm missing before we head over and talk a little bit about production?
No, I feel like we're good unless Justin or James have any anecdotes that they want to add based off their time in the trenches with this module of Cin7 Core.
No, I think you hit all the points for receiving. This is it's definitely robust. It handles, all of our needs.
Perfect. Perfect.
Izzy, as you get into production, we got a question about co-manufacturing. So if you could touch on that in the production module, and as we talk about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, can do. And that's right where we're headed. So I'll head into production. So within the production module, I usually like to give a little note here. We've got simple production, and then we've got advanced production. Simple production is what happens, what goes in, what goes out. So what stock is going in at what cost, what comes out. Advanced manufacturing, or what we call advanced production, is more of how does that happen. So we're still accounting for what goes in and what comes out, but how much time does it take? How many steps does it take? Do we have capacity for our people and machines? What does our schedule look like? So we've got some options if we want to stick on the simple side or maybe get more in depth into some of those additional functions. We'll first touch on the assembly side so we can get a good feel for how it works. Then we'll talk a little high level about that advanced side. I'll head into assemblies here so we can take a look. Now, assemblies can be used for quite a few things. It can be used for production. So if we say on a Monday, we're going to go and produce 100 of these finished goods, tell us what we need to grab. Assembly can be used for that. It also can be used for bundled products. You might have bundles or kits available on your site where you purchase the single bundle SKU, but when you go to dispatch it, you're actually sending out a couple products, maybe an insert, maybe an accessory. So accounting for those as well, making sure that we're keeping stock for those components, calculating how many bundles can we ideally sell. And then contract manufacturing applies here as well. And I'll sort of reference that as we move through this assembly workflow.
And I bet the assemblies are probably relevant, especially for a lot of e-com companies that are selling, like, hey, warehouse, when you get the order for this thing, you need to put the, bags or cans or whatever in it. Also, like, we have this sticker that we want you to put in and this insert that says, please leave us a review on Amazon or whatever, right? So if you don't do that, how is a warehouse that you're not talking to going to remember each time if you have this kind of a thing for them, right?
Exactly. Yep. And we've got print offs that can be sent. We can log in, view what needs to be used. I'll go ahead and click into one of these assemblies so we can see how it works. Do a high level overview here. Pretty simple setup. All we're telling the system is where are we doing this assembly? What product are we doing it for? And how many are we producing? From there, it gives us our assembly order. That will say this is what you should use. We can at this point print this out. Like we see here, I've got my item, I've got some inserts that are going to go into this kit. Gives us our total quantities needed here. If we're missing any products, those will highlight in red to let us know we need to purchase those in. We've got some additional options I'll talk about that helps us to purchase in those goods and even create these assemblies to tell us what we need to produce. From here, we tell the system what we actually used. So our assembly order says this is what you should use. Pick is where we say what we've actually used. This will note any of those batch numbers that we might be using for component goods. You can see here, no batch numbers. That'll come up as NA, like with our insert here. With that, that does bring up our costs. So working on a FIFO or FIFO basis in the system, first in, first out, first expiration, first out. We're going to gather those costs for those components, any landed costs that might have been included in purchasing, and we're going to take that and contribute that to our finished goods. So once we've come in and now tell the system what we've actually used, any batch numbers, once we enter that completion date up top, we get our finished goods. So we can see here, pretty simple. Telling the system what we would like to produce and where. It says, okay, based on your BOM, you need to go grab this many components. We'll tell the system, okay, we went and grabbed our components. This is what we used. Some different batch numbers. Maybe we have different SKUs entirely here. That's fine too. Maybe we have to make replacements, use a little bit more, a little bit less. No problem. The system can handle that. Completion date gives us our finished goods. So we see how here, pretty simple, what goes in, what comes out. And then we're doing some costing in the background as well. Now, we mentioned that this can be used for like assembling goods internally. If we say we're going to do 100 today, we can run the assembly order. Now, when it comes to contract manufacturing, this applies for assemblies as well. We would still use this to track the stock that goes in and comes out. This would be at our co-man's location. So we mentioned earlier talking about availability. Each of our co-mans has a location, so we can see what raw materials, what finished goods they have. So making sure we're doing that at their location. And then the additional step here that's required for contract manufacturing, we know that when they manufacture goods for us, we're probably going to get a bill for labor, for fees, for any of the goods that they may have provided. Again, thinking about cost of goods sold, we want to make sure that those costs go into our unit costs of our finished goods. For that, we can have an entirely separate purchase order to our co-man that says that we owe them money. We owe them this much for any fees, materials provided. We do have a way in the system to link in that separate purchase into this assembly here, making sure that those costs that you paid roll up into this production. So assembly.
So one question that just came in, it's like, what if you only get some of what you ordered, like partially received? Sounds maybe under that simple or advanced, you can like be like, okay, I didn't get this, so we're issuing a second invoice for this other stuff.
Okay, yeah, so we would want to split that. So if, say, we said that they were going to produce 100 for us and they only produce 90, we have some options. If we are not expecting that rest of the 10 to come in, if they said you wanted 100, we only produce 90, that's all you get, we can change this finished good quantity. So we can see with my pick tab open, I still have the option to change that. I could reduce that to 90. Now, if we did have a situation where we were expecting those additional 10 units to eventually come in, we'd still want to change that to 90, have a separate assembly order to note those 10 that we're still awaiting, since it's maybe a separate process from what we're seeing here. Yeah, great question. Any other in the chat, Stephen, on assembly before I possibly head over to advanced?
We got one question on the process of splitting a PO for merchants. And then there was just the co-man one we already talked about.
Got it. Okay, so splitting PO, what was that question? Let me look. I'll check.
That was, yeah, that was, well, I was asking, I guess that was, I was talking about like for assembly and pick and stuff, but I think also now that I'm reading that question, it may actually be about POs. Like how is that going to flow into the actual PO?
Yep, I do see that. So with purchase orders, let me get over into one of my entities that has a little bit more here. We would use what we call an advanced purchase. So we have the option to do multiple receipts, multiple invoices on a single purchase order. So we want to retain the whole PO within one order number, but we might receive goods now, we might receive goods in a month, we might receive goods in 2 months. So how we would account for that is through an advanced purchase order. Click into one so that we can actually see what it looks like. And this can be done through WMS as well, just as a good note. So with our advanced PO here, we can still see our total order. So for this example, I've ordered a quantity of 100 of my goods. We can see we've got an invoicing and receiving section 1. So on the 6th, I came in and received about half of my goods. Say I got the other half of my shipment in today, I can come and add an additional section for invoicing and receiving. We can then receive in the rest of our goods. And then the system gives us visibility into when we've received each of those separate shipments. Only when we receive these do they go into stock on hand. So if I were still waiting for goods, we would still see those as incoming. Yeah, perfect. All right, let's see. And then I think we have another command, hybrid turnkey relationship with co-man. I purchase some ingredients, they purchase some others. Is it possible to configure Cin7 to support this type of setup? Great question. It absolutely is. So in the case where we're doing some contract manufacturing, you might supply some goods, the co-man might supply some goods. To start that off, you supplying your goods. As we mentioned, we would have that separate location for our contract manufacturer. So we have visibility to see they probably have 0 raw materials that we provide them. At that point, we could either make a purchase directly to their location if the goods are getting shipped from our vendor to the co-man directly, purchase order with their location as the receipt location. Otherwise, if we have maybe a warehouse where we store our goods and then we actually send them over like via truck to the co-man, we could do a transfer there as well. So that transfer would note the SKUs and the quantities going from which of our locations to which co-man. So we definitely can supply some of our own goods either through that purchase or transfer. And then for the goods that they supply for you, that's where we mentioned having possibly a separate purchase order where they're charging us for any goods supplied, any labor, any fees. So we account for those costs for their goods on that separate PO. Cool. If I didn't answer those questions well, throw it into the chat if you'd like some clarity there. Otherwise, Daniel, any notes that you have, anything else we'd like to discuss when it comes to the assembly side before we head over into advanced?
Let's get advanced.
Let's do it. All right, sounds good. So we'll head over into the advanced side of production. Keeping in mind, we're still accounting here for what goes in, what comes out, just doing it in a little bit more of an advanced way. So looking at our production orders here, we do have our production order list. Click into one of these so we can see what it looks like. Now, as a note, with both assembly and manufacturing, as well as purchasing here, we've got some tools to help you generate these orders. So you don't have to come in and like know off the top of your head what you need to purchase, what you need to produce. I'll talk near the end about one of the tools that we recently acquired, Inventoro, which looks at your sales history, makes a sales forecast for you, and then tells you what you need to purchase and produce based off of that. So if in the back of our minds, we're thinking, okay, this is all great, but I don't want to have to do this math myself. I don't want to have to figure all this out. That is coming. We'll talk about inventory near the end there. Looking at our production order here, a couple things similar to assembly. We're still telling the system what SKU we're producing, where we're producing it at, and how many. We've got some additional planning features in here. So our capacity calculation, we can either go from a planned date forward or from a required date backward. So helping with some scheduling here. As we scroll down, we'll see our bill of materials, and we already notice it looks quite different than that assembly BOM that just had components. We're still including components here. So what products are going into our goods? We're also including things like resources here as well. So our people, our machines, how much time does it take them per step to complete this? Will they have enough time this week to finish this production order? The system will let us know. We also can account for output here as well. So if you're going through a production process and you get something out of it, you want to inventory that maybe isn't the intended finished goods. Our example is usually like cheese. We might be making a block of cheese and out of it, we get cheese curds. We can have that as output. We can inventory it, make sure that we know that we have it on hand. We do step out this production as well. So now we can see we have steps 1, 2, 3, as many as you need essentially. I've seen up to like 10 to 15 step bill of materials. We do tell the system what's going on within that step, and then where is it happening? What work center or what location within our production facility is this happening at? We do cycle times here as well. So predictions on about how long this should take. I'm going to reference back to each of these fields as we're going through the production order. Why does all this stuff benefit us? Let's work through it and figure it out. So we've got our bill of materials here. This is kind of our template. When we're ready to actually do production, we would start a production run. Now, we might plan to produce 100 finished goods this week. If we want to parse that out, we absolutely can. If I say today I'm only going to produce 20, I could create my production run with only a quantity of 20 in there. Then tomorrow, I could start another run with another 20. We could see as many production runs as needed here to reflect how it's correctly parsed out in real life. In this example, I'm doing it all in one, so we'll look at our single production run here. Now, looking at advanced manufacturing, there's quite a bit to see. So I like to keep it high level, focus on the functions. How does this benefit us? If we do have questions, throw them in the chat, but I'm going to try to keep it like sensical as we go through this. Looking at our production run here, on the left side, we see all of those steps that we mentioned. So I've got 3 steps in this operation. Within our steps, we have our time tracking, so our start and stop clock, which records our actual time against our planned time. And then we track what did we actually use. So the system still gives us an expected quantity. This is what you should use. We get to tell it what we actually used, any wastage and batch numbers there.
Isabella, is
Daniel?
it, so if you, this like one thing, okay, so Justin and James Coconut Cult, they have their own manufacturing, I think, right? So they would be logging that kind of stuff. If you're working with a co-man, are they actually entering this kind of stuff also, like how long it takes them?
Now, typically with contract manufacturing, we would stick with the simple assembly. So that lets us know what goes in, comes out. We don't often care about the details. How long did it take? How many steps did the co-man go through? Now, that said, it is up to you. Typically, what will happen is the co-man will email you and say, hey, for this production order, we completed this many finished goods and we used this many goods. That's when someone from your team would come in and actually mark that. Now, we have seen some instances where you can give limited access to the system to your contract manufacturers so they can come in and fill out that information themselves. We do have very specific user permissions and roles, so it's kind of up to you whether you want them to enter that or enter it yourself. Yeah, good note there.
Okay, and then the co-man also could be like checking the levels of all your ingredients that they have access to at the beginning, at the end. There are always discrepancies there and they lose something or waste something. Exactly.
Yep. So say like a couple items fell off the shelf, we've got to write them off. They might not have those in their system anymore, but they're still in Cin7. That's when we could come in, do a write-off, make sure that that inventory is the same there. Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Perfect. Sounds good. So working through production here, we know we've got our steps on the left. We're tracking our time through our clock. We're tracking what we actually used within this operation. Last thing for these steps, The system is generating costs for you for those labor, overheads, and resources that we mentioned. This is a really good way, again, making sure that cost is accurate, making sure any cost we put into that item is being recorded. So we've mentioned some of these actions within each of our steps: time tracking, consumption tracking. As we move through our steps, we'll do each of those items, noting how much time, what we used. This is usually the point where I like to make a note. We have an app for this as well. So as we're moving through these steps, if you would like someone in your team to be able to open up via an app, do all those things that we just mentioned, track their time, track what they use, track output, they can absolutely do that. We do have a nice document on here that makes it easy to view what that app looks like. They would see something like this when they log in. They get to select their workstation that we mentioned. So what part of the warehouse are they working in? What machine are they working on? They then see only their relevant tasks. When they click into those, they get to do all of the things that we just mentioned, right? Tracking our time using that clock, tracking any consumption and wastage, and then they can take a look at any original bill of materials, notes, files that are associated with that. So nice to have an option there for an app if you've got tablets that you'd like to put in the production facility. Otherwise, all of that can be tracked here on the back end as well. So we've worked through our steps. Last step here is to note any output. So once we get our finished goods, if there's a batch number, of course, we'll note that so we can begin that tracking. We'll get some overall figures on what was produced and at what cost. Looking here, we've got some additional features that we can talk about when it comes to manufacturing. But Daniel, any notes before I kind of move through that?
Nope.
Perfect. Sounds good. So understand this is a lot to see here for production, especially this advanced manufacturing portion. If you have questions on this, please reach out to us. We can provide some clarity on, will this work with our operations? Are there other options that we can explore? Definitely let us know. I will make the note in addition here, we do have some options for capacity planning, some reports that let you know how much are people and machines working this week? Are we over allocated? Do we need to move some stuff around? That ties in with our scheduler, which is a nice overall view of what's going on in the system when it comes to manufacturing. Let's go over to my other one here. Overall view, what's going on in the system when it comes to manufacturing, just gives you a nice bird's eye view. Sometimes we'll have people put that on like a TV in the production center so that we can see what's going on at once. Beautiful. All of our manufacturing orders here, how long they should take, looking at our required by dates. We can definitely send some additional information here. I could talk about production forever, but I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Let's head over to sales. So we've now purchased in some raw materials. We've went and produced them using our co-man or internally ourselves. When it comes to sales, just like purchases, we'll keep all of these in a list. We do bring in sales from lots of different places. EDI through SPS. We can do e-commerce orders. We have a B2B platform we can offer, so your wholesalers can submit their own orders. And then we can just add those here. We work with a variety of shipment providers, ShipStation, 3PLs. If you do some manual shipping, we can account for that as well. But our sale here is essentially tracking when it's open, that reduces our availability, and then tracking that shipment process through pick, pack, and ship here. Usually, we like to work with whatever shipping you're using now. So if you use a 3PL, if you use ShipStation, if you're manual shipping, we've got a workflow for that. Just kind of a matter of getting in there, seeing what will work best for us. And then when it comes to accounting, works the same way as purchasing. Once we invoice this, heads over to your accounting system. We want to make sure that there's no double entry needed there. Sales tends to be pretty simple. We're bringing in those items from your connections, helping you process those with shipping, sending them up to QuickBooks. Daniel, any notes there before I finish out with some accounting and reporting?
So just what is it like if you use EDI versus if you don't use EDI?
With EDI, our preferred partner tends to be SPS. So typically SPS will connect into us. That enables the EDI orders to flow in. Now, there isn't a terrible amount of difference when it comes to EDI orders. They can be processed in the same way. Usually when we're working with someone like SPS, they're the ones who are controlling the 810s, the 850s, 855s, based on the actions that are happening in our system. So not a ton different that you need to do when it comes to fulfillment with us, just usually a matter of having that SPS to make sure that we're staying compliant with our retailers there.
Thanks.
Perfect.
One
Sounds
sales
good.
question for you, Izzy, from the
Yeah.
chat here. Is there an option for customers to pay invoices online?
Oh, there is. So we do connect with payment providers like Stripe, Authorize.net, a few of those where we can add a Pay Now button to an invoice. We've got options to email out invoices from our system. We can include that Pay Now button so they can make a payment. That will come back into our system, back up to your accounting as well. Definitely. Yeah, good question. Perfect. All right. So we'll finish out with some reporting. So now we have quite a bit of information in the system, right? Products, purchases, production, and sales. Thank you everyone for sticking with me through this. This is like one of my favorite topics to talk about. So finish out here with reporting. We want to give you visibility into all of that information we just mentioned. So we've got it separated out by module here. I'll click into one so that we can see what it looks like. One of our popular ones, sales profit summary. We are set up in pivot tables. So if you're familiar with pivot tables, this should be pretty intuitive. We can rearrange our pivots as we would like. We can export these reports. We can automate these to your inbox as well. Main thing here is we want to give you visibility into all of this data that we've been collecting throughout this entire process. So that's a good place to wrap it up. Daniel, any other notes, any other modules you think I should touch on before we finish it out here with our last few minutes?
No, I think it's good. I just would maybe pass back to Justin or James, like, hey, as we've been going through all this stuff, has it brought back up any good memories, scary memories, any tips that you would give for brands that are kind of seeing this for the first time, or trying to like set up their data to be ready to do all of this stuff?
I mean, for me, just going through that production piece, we started with advanced production modules, but we have noticed just because of like how we manage our labor and how everything's kind of static, X amount of people will always be here to make our product. We've transitioned over to the assembly side, and just have done labor through QuickBooks, and have that synced that way. But we've really liked that transition. It's just been a lot simpler and easier. We can just run the production. We know how much product is being used throughout the day. It's been really good.
Yeah, I would just echo that when you're looking at setting this up, like really take the longer view approach and like work with someone who really knows the system well, lean on the Cin7 team as much as you can and their internal resources. I don't think any of it is easy, but like Cin7 has made it, in my opinion, really approachable. And if you're thinking about it, I would just encourage people to just go for it, you know?
Very, very powerful once if you set it up right. And like the data integrity is good and you actually are diligent about entering everything in, then when you have questions, the answer comes like that, right? Like all the data flows through.
Yeah, you have to be super diligent, making sure you're keeping at it, right? Keeping everything consistent moving forward.
I love it. And then when you, it's reminds me of just like, if you're going to be asking your ops guy questions all the time, and it's the difference between him being like, okay, let me go and call everyone, find out all the answer and do that. And then you're like, well, what if it was this though? If I changed it, think like this whole process again, to just having all the tracks laid down appropriately, information just flows across them. Okay, so a couple last questions coming in here. Can the reporting pull recognize revenue and COGS for partially fulfilled orders? And can it sync that over to accounting in partials versus full?
Yes, definitely for sales. If we partially fulfill an order, we calculate COGS once the goods go out the door, once they've been shipped. So only the goods that have been shipped will have the COGS calculated on them. We do sync that up to your accounting system. And then once the rest of the order is fulfilled, that COGS will be calculated and synced as well.
Okay, and then another one that came in is about like a lot of sample orders that come in. So to track inventory run rates and marketing expenses, we track orders that are samples. We process them in Shopify and use a shop, which I think is pretty common, and tag it and filter that for later. Can you pull in that kind of data and integrate it with QuickBooks, like when you're fulfilling a lot of sampled orders?
Definitely. Yeah. So we do have an option within our Shopify integration to pull in the order tags. And then when we do that, that gives you the availability to filter those when it comes to reporting, viewing your sales orders. If we're sending those to something like a 3PL, we can filter those as well. Make sure pre-orders don't go over till a certain date. So definitely can deal with, yeah, some of that pre-order tagging there for sure.
Okay, I think we got through all the questions. I'm just going to post one last time the link for Cin7, who we really love having as a partner. And you remember you get the first month free and then 50% off 3 months, but you should really commit to doing it well. You know, I wouldn't like just go in just to like check it. Like, I mean, if you're going to commit to it, definitely get it set up right, like James and Justin are saying. And then last question that just came in is typical onboarding timeline. That's a great one. How long will this take to get right?
I can speak to that. Yeah. So typical onboarding timeline tends to be between like 4 to 8, 6 to 10 weeks, depending on complexity and depending as well on the availability of your team. So if we've got a small amount of SKUs and a team that has all the time in the world, this should have been done yesterday. We can get that done closer to that like 4 to 8 week timeline. Now we know sometimes you might have a large SKU catalog. You might also want to go through your product data and do some cleanup during that time. You might also have a team that's working through busy season who might not have as much time to commit to the project. That's when we see more towards that 6 to 10 week timeline. Yep.
All right. Great question. Okay. James, coming back to you for the last word here about Coconut Cult in general, like what do you hope that everyone who gets to try Coconut Cult, what should their experience be like? And is there anywhere you want people to go and try to buy it? You're on, oh, and you're on mute, by the way.
I would say, you know, I hope that you just really enjoy how fun and tasty the product is. We definitely load it full of like just the highest quality ingredients. Our standards are really high and the packaging is just really fun. So I hope you just enjoy having it in your fridge and eating it daily. Whole Foods, Sprouts, Fresh Market, your local co-op. Yeah, get it where you can. Just anything to add to that?
Yeah, or our website, just because we release new flavors like every month. So you could find us really anywhere, but it's definitely the fun cultish vibe that we have here. And it's delicious. It's good for you too.
All right. I just put the link in the chat. Join the cult, everybody. Don't think twice. Just join the cult. And you can check out their website. The following really is cult-like. People love the product. So thank you. Huge thank you to Justin and James for giving us the perspective that I think everybody really needs. This recording will be available. It usually goes up on YouTube, on our Startup CPG YouTube within about a week. So you'll have access to it. And again, if you want to just set up time now with the Cin7 team, they can go into your specific questions. And so I posted that link one last time in the chat. That's all you. And thank you, Isabella, for taking all of our questions and going through it nice and slow for us. We appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for the partnership. It's amazing when we can partner with the service provider that everybody says is the best one for the early brands and then work to educate the community and get discounts and all that fun stuff.
Heck yeah, we love working with Startup CPG. Absolutely love to get these businesses, on our platform. And the main thing is seeing the businesses grow. You know, we love to see all of you scale and really succeed when it comes to sales. So looking forward to seeing some new names in my inbox. Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Have a good afternoon, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.